Draft, baby. Dun, 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 dun. We're talking draft, baby. Dun, 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 dun. All right, stop. Where are the Texans picking? That's what we're talking about today. Where exactly are the Houston Texans picking? Are they going to stay at 25? Are they going to move up? Could they move down? We'll explore all those options here as the NFL draft is oh so close, but still far enough away that I'm slightly losing my mind, as intro to this video would show you. The Vanilla Ice, Weird Al Yankovic comparison combo that I just tried to put together. Alas, we're going to go through the Goldilocks scenario. This trade up costs maybe a little too much. This trade back's not enough. Is sticking and picking just right? We'll find out by the end of this video. So the Houston Texans have the 25th overall pick in the first round. But Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated said that the Texans are one of the teams he has heard are interested in maybe moving up in the draft. Now, Breer brought up a small move for the Texans that would be for maybe a guard, or a bigger move that would be for someone who is a little bit more highly touted than just a guard. Now, I don't believe either of the top two tackles, Will Campbell from LSU or Armand Membou from Missouri, are going to get into a range where the Texans could or should trade up for them. Just getting into the top 10 for one of those guys just doesn't feel like the right move for the Houston Texans. If they were one offensive lineman away, maybe we'd have that conversation. That's not where the Texans are as a team or as an offense. They shouldn't do that. But if Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas started to slip down the board a little bit, maybe the Texans would be interested in moving up. Again, not a huge move up. I'm not going into the top 12 or the top 11 or even really the top 13 to go and get Kelvin Banks Jr. It just gets a little expensive to do that. But 15, where the Atlanta Falcons have a little bit less draft capital than just about every team in this entire draft, or maybe 16, where Nick Caserio has previously worked with the Arizona Cardinals on a big trade up. Remember when Will Anderson got drafted right after CJ Stroud got drafted? That's pretty fun. Maybe Caserio could work with them again. But what's it cost? If you want to move up for Kelvin Banks Jr., what does it cost to move up for Kelvin Banks Jr.? Well, I did it for the 15th overall pick, which is currently owned by the Atlanta Falcons. And it would cost the Houston Texans the 25th overall pick in this year's draft, the 89th overall pick in this year's draft, and the 2026 fourth round pick that they decide to send. Now, when I say they decide to send, they've got two of them. They could send the Commanders pick, or they could send their own pick, but they have two fourth-round picks in next year's draft. Now, this might look like a slight overpay, but that's kind of what Nick Caserio's MO is. Don't let a little bit of value keep you from doing the deal. Since 2021, no other general manager in all of football has traded up as much as Nick Caserio has traded up. He has traded up 13 times since he became the general manager of the Houston Texans in 2021. He has only traded down 5 times in that same amount of time. And a lot of times on the value chart, Nick Caserio loses the trade. He gives up more value than he gets, and that would be the scenario here. He's given up a little bit more value, and the Houston Texans are getting the 15th overall pick, which they would use on Texas tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. Now, why is Banks Jr. the guy that I'd be targeting for this? Well, he solves 2 problems that the Texans have. They need some help on the offensive line this year, and Banks could play guard for the Houston Texans right away. And then they've got to figure out who the left tackle of the future is for this organization. Cam Robinson, who's slated to play left tackle, well, he is a free agent at the end of the year, and if he plays really well and you want to re-sign him, that's going to be expensive. Banks won't be nearly as expensive as Cam Robinson. Now, I really like Kelvin Banks Jr., and I'd make that trade. If the Atlanta Falcons wanted to do that, I'd make that trade, even though I believe there's tremendous value to be had on day 2 of this NFL draft. I would make that move up the 10 spots, and get a guy that answers 2 questions for the Houston Texans. Plays guard this year, probably plays at a pretty high level, and then ultimately is the left tackle option for the Texans after this upcoming season. That's what I would do that's what I would do with the selections in a move up, and I'd go get Kelvin Banks Jr. That's the only player I'd move that far to go and get. I wouldn't move up that far to get Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. I wouldn't move up that far to get Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. I would only move up for Kelvin Banks Jr., and I'd only really kind of pay that price, maybe slightly less if you got involved with the Cardinals at 16 instead of the Atlanta Falcons at 15. But that's really the only trade-up move that I would make. If I was the Texans, I wouldn't trade up for a guard. I would just let the board fall to me. The value of guards typically dictates that they'll go right about when the Texans are picking. They shouldn't be moving up a couple of spots unless it is a very, very minimal price. But if you're moving up from, say, 25 to 22, what's it cost you? Does that cost you a fifth-round pick? Does that cost you the evaluation of one of those fourth-round picks that you have in the future? Like, I don't know if I want to do that for a guard. I'd probably just let the board fall to me. There should be a capable offensive lineman at 25. And sticking and picking at 25, if you want to go offensive lineman, you want to go with another position, here are two players that I believe in the stick and pick scenario should be available for the Houston Texans. I'll go with less likely to be available and then more likely to be available. The less likely to be available player in this scenario, how about Tyler Booker? We just talked about him, the left guard from Alabama. Don't move up for Tyler Booker. There's just too many questions about Booker's long-term athleticism and can he handle some of the NFL level of play to move up for him. But at 25, the success he had at Alabama and the off-the-field profile, which is seemingly pretty pristine, at 25, he'd be a really, really fun selection for the Texans' needs, which is offensive lineman. Now, is Booker going to get there? I would tell you that he should be the first guard off of the board. And if the Texans aren't going to have a shot at him at 25, there'll be some other ones, but there's a decent chance based on positional value that Booker should be available at 25. And you could take the best guard in this draft, according to a lot of people, at 25. I would do that in a stick and pick scenario. But let's say Booker's not available because he is the best guard and he's off the board. And you don't love some of the other guard options. Maybe you're waiting until day 2 to make the selection. Well, you can pivot pretty easily if you're the Houston Texans over to Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver from The Ohio State University. Man, 15 of his 24 receiving touchdowns in the red zone. He's the all-time receiving yards and receptions leader for The Ohio State. Productive player, has probably a lower ceiling than most first-round picks, but he has a higher floor than a lot of these first-round picks that are going to come off the board, and the Texans could use some help at wide receiver, especially a player like Egbuka who solves 2 questions. Can you help wide receiver this year? Yes. Emeka Egbuka can play outside. He can play inside. And then who's the slot receiver next year? Oh, well, it's Emeka Egbuka. He's going to play a little outside and a little inside. Christian Kirk only has a 1-year deal with the Texans right now. So sticking and picking, Tyler Booker, Emeka Egbuka, or maybe another guard that's available. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State University, though I don't feel like he fits the profile for the Houston Texans coming from a smaller school. Or Donovan Jackson from The Ohio State University, played guard and played a little bit of tackle, though I don't believe many people believe he's going to be a tackle at the next level. Now, that's trading up, getting Kelvin Banks Jr., spending some picks. That's sticking and picking. Tyler Booker, Emeka Egbuka, maybe Donovan Jackson. What about you get to 25? You just don't love the options. You don't love the low ceiling of Emeka Egbuka. So maybe you want to just kind of see how things go. And you really like that second round and third round, like yours truly, and you want to load up on value there. Then there's the third scenario. If you've already thought about trading up, if you've already thought about sticking and picking, let's go back down the board. I know Nick Caserio has only done it a handful of times, and his most notable trade down didn't go so hot. He traded back with the Philadelphia Eagles. They went and got Jordan Davis. That turned out okay for them. And then before the Texans were back on the clock, Kyle Hamilton went off the board to the Baltimore Ravens, and the Texans ended up with Kenyon Green. It didn't work out so well. But if the Texans were sitting there at 25 and say, I don't know, one of those quarterbacks that some of these quarterback-hungry teams was hanging out there, maybe that top part of the the top part of the second round might come calling, might pick up the phone and just see what it would take to get Nick Caserio out of that 25th overall pick. When you look at the top part of the second round as it's constructed, Cleveland could use a quarterback. The New York Giants could use a quarterback. The Las Vegas Raiders could use a quarterback. The New Orleans Saints could use a quarterback. And then you look at Chicago here with 39 and 41. If they don't get a dynamic running back with their first round pick, maybe they would call you and try to work out a deal. How would you like to have, I don't know, 39, 41, and 79 and 89 on day 2? 4 selections, those selections all being kind of tightly packed together. I certainly would be in favor of that if I was the Houston Texans. The Cleveland Browns have a lot of extra picks. They could help you out with adding into the equation. The Vegas Raiders could give you some picks. They might even have a player that could be interesting to you. I don't know, tight end Michael Mayer off their roster. They don't need him as much with Brock Bowers doing what he's doing. Now, obviously, the Texans would lose out on something if they moved back from 25. They probably would lose out on the top guards, plural, at the position. They might lose out at, wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. But if you moved back into the top part of the second round and you had that additional selection, maybe you'd feel more comfortable taking, I don't know, the third or fourth running back at 33, 34, 40, something like that versus 25. Because if the top 2 running backs are off the board, 25 is a little early for a running back, but 33, when you had some extra draft capital coming your way, that gets pretty exciting, doesn't it? Or maybe you'd feel good about a tight end. Or, hey, you move back far enough in the second round, you got all that extra capital in the third round and the fourth round next year and the second round next year. You really like 2 guys at the top part of the second round. It becomes easy to move some of that stuff around. You move back to then be able to move up again after you make some selections. I really like that scenario for the Texans. Amongst these 3, I don't know how the board's shaken out, so it's easier for me to say trade up, trade down, yada, yada. Amongst these 3, I kind of do like sticking and picking the most without knowing how the board is shaking out. But if a lot of the players that we've talked about fit for the Texans at 25, like, say, Tyler Booker from Alabama, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, though I don't know he's a great fit, or if Donovan Jackson is off the board but Zabel's there and they don't love small school guys, if Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, is already off the board, if those players are gone, get on the phone and move back a little bit. Maybe you don't even have to get all the way out of the first round. I know we started with the top of round 2, but the Eagles sitting there at 32, the Chiefs sitting there at 31, maybe they could wet the beak a little bit, get you to move back some. You could pick up maybe that 4th rounder the Texans don't have, or maybe the 4th and the 6th rounder the Texans don't have in this upcoming draft. I do like the move back, but we'll go sticking and picking, then we'll go move back, and then we'll go move up. I don't love the move up for the Texans. It's very costly, and I know Kelvin Banks would be fun for this team. I just feel like you could solve more problems by keeping the picks, letting Nick Caserio go to work on day 2 of the draft. If they got 3 eventual starters on day 2, like they did last year, that would go a really long way into solidifying the Houston Texans. If you take Banks after the trade up and you only get 2 starters, you'd love to get 4 starters versus 3 starters. You have a first rounder, Nick Caserio nails it with 3 more starters on day 2 or significant contributors. Next thing you know, that's better. 4 is better than 3. I don't have to do the math for you on that one. What's your favorite scenario? You like trade up? You like trade down? You like just right where you are? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to S&L. Myself and Landry Locker do a live show each and every weekday at 4 p.m. That's where we're going to be doing our big draft spectacular over on S&L on that channel. So don't miss out on that. Throughout the course of round 1 and throughout the courses of round 2 and 3, we'll be live right here on YouTube. So don't miss out on that. We'll visit with my buddy Mike Lachine from NFL Rough Draft. We went over running backs and sleepers and tight ends and, of course, wide receivers and offensive linemen. Check out those videos. The draft's almost here. You want to be up to speed when the first round, second round, and third round get here. Of course, we'll keep you up to date for the fourth round and beyond after those first 3 rounds are settled. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of that. Appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to stick around for a fantasy draft that is very Houston-based, well, it's coming your way here in a moment. But if not, appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait until we talk Texans again soon. The ultimate fantasy drafts roll on, although this one's a bit more of a nightmare. And there was nobody better to bring in to talk about the worst roads and highways to drive on in our fine city than a dear old friend of mine. I'm not sitting here talking about sports without the leadership and guidance of this guy from way back in the day. And if you've listened to sports radio or paid attention to media in this town, you've seen him because you hear him on the CityCast Houston podcast. You see him as the lead play-by-play guy for Fury FC on UFC Fight Pass. And when you go to the Roughnecks game, you see him as the in-stadium host. And then you see him all around the town. Who knows where you're going to pop up next? It's my old friend, Raheel Ramzanali. Raheel, it's great to be talking with you, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me on. What an introduction right there. I don't know if I can live up to all that, but I'm excited, man. And I think you would still be successful without me in sports media. So I don't want any credit. You're talented. You would have been great. I think if anything, I'm holding you back. So it was my job. Yeah, you would have been like way bigger.
What I did tell the people is I just learned a lot of what not to do. That was what it's like. Oh, don't do that. That's
yeah, definitely don't do that.
Okay, so this is now with CityCast Houston. It's a great podcast. You guys do all this fantastic info about the city from events and food and culture and news and then I know sometimes you've talked about just like infrastructure in the city and how it's maybe not always been great. And I think we all feel that when we're driving around and we're hitting potholes that are 5 feet deep.
Oh, yeah. So, terrible roads.
I wanted to have you on, and we're going to do a fantasy draft of the worst roads to drive on or highways to drive on in Houston. It could be because of traffic. It could be because of just the poor state of the roads. And we'll go back and forth. I'll give you the first pick. We'll each get 4. And you know what? If you draft a highway, maybe a specific direction or section would probably be the best way. If you draft the road, I'll give you the whole road. So
okay, that's fair. There's
some roads that are going to be more valuable than other with the whole road, but with the highway, give me a section of the highway.
Okay, that's totally fair. And I do want to say one thing before we get started. I wanted to draft a very Houston Texans specific road, but I don't think it's eligible for the draft because it only happens after games. But the worst, absolute nightmare of a road is the NRG parking lot after a game. It is the worst thing ever. The Houston Texans have actually done a really good job with game days. I actually went to my first game in probably 5 years this past season with my daughter. It was great. Things were affordable. We got to our seats relatively easy. Everybody was just super nice. And then we tried to leave at the end, especially it was after that Tennessee game, Cody. So I was already pissed and I didn't want to be there because of just how embarrassing that loss was. And then we got stuck in traffic or just trying to get out of that damn parking lot for almost an hour. I've never been that mad. So I don't think it's draft eligible. It's still a freshman right now. So although it's a long running problem, but that was going to be my initial pick. But I just want to throw that out there and just get that off my chest.
The emeritus top pick for everybody.
God, yeah. How do you not hire more officers? Come on, Cal. Come on, buddy.
It's rough. Okay, the draft starts with your first pick.
All right,
you let me know what you're taking first, and then we'll go back and forth from there.
Okay. This number 1 pick is by far the strongest pick that anybody can make in the city of Houston when it comes to the worst roads. This is a guaranteed Hall of Famer. This is a sure Super Bowl winning quarterback. This is a guy you look at like almost like Andrew Luck. You knew he was going to be successful. He's going to be
Yep.
great. And you're like, this guy is going to be the number one pick no matter what. Everything else is a formality. And to me, the number one pick in the worst highway road draft is that stretch of 610 between 59 and I-10 going through the Galleria. It is the worst road. It doesn't matter what time you're on that road, you're going to hit traffic. You're going to hit the worst drivers. It is just a nightmare. And it is the reason why people hate 610. It's that one stretch.
Yeah, that is a surefire, can't miss number one pick as ever have been drafted in any draft ever.
Yeah, like the draft starts now, honestly.
Yes.
The rest of the draft will start now because that is the worst.
Yes. And I mean, you just, there's never like, no, I don't want to say never. So many times you can't figure out why it was slow. You can't. I think there's no clear indication why there was traffic there.
It makes no sense, right? One, you're feeding, you got the normal 610 traffic, then you're feeding in 59. And then as you progress towards 290 I-10, then you've got two separate mergers you got to worry about. And then you've got oncoming traffic. Like, it is just the worst design as well. Like, why would you put that many different feeders into this little stretch of 610? Why is there always traffic there? I'll never know, but it's part of Houston. It's what makes Houston great.
The gall of the Galleria traffic.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay, I'm going to go with a road for my first pick.
Ooh, okay.
And I feel pretty good about this because this is not a small road, and I've got a lot of different spots that are just yucky parts of the road. I'm going with Richmond.
Ooh.
Richmond is just atrocious. It feels like it doesn't get anywhere near the amount of love for fixing stuff some of the other roads get. I feel like I've driven over the same pothole for decades at different spots. If you're anywhere near the Galleria, the traffic backs up really bad. There's there's train tracks on Richmond that you have to deal with. And then once you start heading a little bit west, the roads are just in terrible condition. Richmond is my number one draft.
Yeah, and it's also the ugliest road in my opinion. Like I think like Westheimer. I know one of us will draft Westheimer at some point.
Yes,
but at least Westheimer has some redeeming qualities when you drive through like Highland Village, and it's kind of pretty. You see all the high end shops, and you kind of get towards the River Oaks area, and it's okay. And even heading west, Westheimer is somewhat bearable, but Richmond is just ugly. Yeah. There's nothing redeeming about Richmond. So that's a pretty dang good number one pick.
All right, your second selection, the third overall pick here.
Okay, third overall pick. Similar to the stretch of 610, there's always traffic on this stretch, and I don't know why, because there's 6 lanes, there's an HOV, but 59 north after Kirby heading into downtown, including that spur 527 all the way to 45, that stretch of 59 makes me want to just quit. I want to leave the city. I like when I'm driving for my UFC work on Sundays, because that's when we usually do our broadcast. Our event venue is up north. It's called the Imagine Venues, like 59 and Aldine Mall, like around there, right? So like right before Bush Airport. So I have to take 59. Sunday at 11 a.m. Why is there traffic?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the point? There's nothing you can do about it. I think that is one of the most frustrating stretches of 59. I hate it. I think it's one of the worst ones. It's a number 2 pick for me, third overall.
That's fantastic, and you're absolutely right. And again, inexplicable traffic. Like, it's not like you get a bunch of cars, breaking down or something. It just, why was it slow?
Yeah.
That's the more times you ask that, the more frustrated you get. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing. Like, there's a lot of research on this. I've been reading a lot of books about this because, it is a topic we cover on CityCast Houston. But the more lanes you build, right? Because 59 at that point has, I believe, 6 lanes and has an HOV lane that will go, depending on the flow of traffic. The more lanes you build, the more traffic you get. So it's not like it's going to get solved anytime. You can't make it any more big.
Right.
It's just you're stuck with this. So I just wanted to point that out.
And I'm sure it will get so much less backed up when they start doing a ton of construction further up
Oh,
59.
oh my gosh, that
I'm
project
sure
took
that,
forever. And now they're gonna move on to the next section. Oh,
oh,
get ready, y'all. It's gonna suck. This draft is gonna change in like a year.
exactly. I'm staying on 59,
Okay.
but I'm going 59 south starting at 610.
Mm.
They did all that change up. They changed that Chimney Rock exit and all that, but still coming around, you got West Park. People don't know that West
Oh,
Park and the West Park Tollway exit are different. So I would say that up until probably about Bissonnettes, maybe even a little
that's
bit
what, yeah,
further.
kind of opens up.
Yeah,
Kind of
but
opens
like
up. But you're so right. And that road, the actual condition of 59 there is terrible.
yes,
It's
yes.
so bad.
Even the new stuff that they've changed it just looks bad. So that little 59 south
I know
from
exactly. Yep.
610 up to about Bissonnet, and you got that little hill before you get to Hillcroft,
Yeah.
and people just stop inexplicably because they don't realize their car is okay going up in the air.
Yeah.
Like the two West
It's so
Park
bad.
exits.
The West Park exit is always backed up. And
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up that West Park exit because that brings me to my number 3 pick.
Okay.
All right. It is the West Park Tollway.
Ooh.
In general, the West Park Tollway is just a stretch, right? You exit 59 and it goes all the way until it turns into like a 2-lane road after 99,
Yep.
where I live, Richmond, Rosenberg area. West Park Tollway, when like you're driving at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, is fine. Any other time, you're paying to sit in traffic.
Yep.
I don't think the engineers of West Park Tollway ever imagined that people would move out that far west, right? Like I used to live off the West Park Tollway and I could never use it. It just
Right.
made no sense in the morning because I would literally be stuck for 45 minutes paying to be sitting
Yeah,
there. It makes no
exactly.
sense. It is such an awful, awful tollway.
Yeah. No, you nailed that. That is totally true. And just right there when it's there at the Beltway, like just disaster.
Mhm.
Just terrible, terrible congestion. That's a good pick. I'm gonna try to come back here. I mean, you said it. I'm gonna go ahead and get it. Westheimer.
Okay.
I'm gonna have Richmond and Westheimer.
Wow. You
The,
got the crappiest team ever. Like
the,
well, I mean a
the,
good team if we're
yeah,
ranking
yeah.
it, but in
We're
terms
good
of
at being
driving,
bad.
yeah, you don't want
We're good
to
at being
drive those
bad.
two roads.
Galleria traffic,
Yeah.
just totally inexplicable. Never understand why there's traffic. And the Montrose area of Westheimer, they've started tearing it up again. It's terrible.
Mhm.
It's all like you have some sections of Westheimer where you can park on the street and it goes down to one lane. And like there's just so many things that I don't like about Westheimer. And then there's just a lot of, even though I think it's decently taken care of as you get a little bit further west, there's just a lot of traffic and a lot of people that use
Yeah.
Westheimer. So I feel like it's a value pick. It was, like you said, an expected pick, but I
Mhm.
got the terrible twosome of Richmond and Westheimer here.
I'll give you one thing on Westheimer. In the morning, if you're heading in from the west side of town, like if you live in Richmond or Rosenberg and you're taking Westheimer in, it's actually a great road because I used to drive that when I worked at ESPN 97.5. And for 5 years, I took Westheimer in because the traffic lights are actually really good about morning traffic. So it flows pretty well. Like it's better to take
Yep.
that as opposed to West Park Tollway or taking 59 and curving back around. Even on the way home, I used to take Westheimer all the time. So I have a lot of experience with Westheimer after Beltway 8, and it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And here's the best part about Westheimer after Beltway 8, the people watching. It is phenomenal. Like I would see something there once a week where I'm like, what the hell did I just see? Right? Like
They got
it's just so much fun people watching.
accessories, vehicles, who knows?
It's just so much fun. So I like that pick. Westheimer's always going to have a special spot in my heart because I drove it so many times.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, what's your final selection here? Your fourth pick.
Man, this is going to be tough. All my big picks are off the board. You took Richmond, you took Westheimer for me. I wanted to draft Highway 6 and Westheimer, but I think that's off the board because you own Westheimer. So
Okay.
it's like an intersection that I used to hate because people just can't drive.
Sure.
I'm just going to go with TC Jester. Okay.
Oh, great pick.
All right. This is just to get TC Jester off the board because I think it'd be disrespectful to leave old pothole on the board. TC Jester is the reason why people always make fun of Houston streets, in my opinion, for the potholes, the random line markers just disappear. It's just a nightmare. Okay. It's so much fun to drive. There's a lot of fun things on TC Jester, but the road sucks.
Yeah. That's a good pick. That's a really good pick. That rounds out your team very well. You're very well diversified with your team.
Yeah.
Fullway on there. Got a couple of freeway sections. Okay. Man, this is tough. I got the last pick here. I could go with another street, but I think I need to
you need something big.
I need something big. Man. 45 South, starting at 610 like you're headed to Galveston.
Oh.
Trying to get on to 45 South coming off of 610, impossible.
Impossible. Don't even try it. Don't try it.
Impossible.
You're going to get cut. Yeah. Just go cut the line. Everyone just go cut the line.
You're either cutting the line or you need to take it the back roads to just and then pop on 45. If there's any sort of anything in Galveston, it backs up.
Mm-hmm.
And then heavy airport times. Like, you get a random traffic day on a Saturday because people are leaving or coming back from the airport. Same with Sunday. Yeah. And then, of course, working traffic. So 45 South, right there, 610 headed to Galveston. That's going to round out my squad here.
That's a good one. 45 South on a Sunday when there's a cruise leaving and you've got like a holiday, like let's say it's 4th of July weekend, and you've got the beach traffic, you definitely want to avoid. That is one of the worst times to ever drive it. I haven't had that much bad luck with 45 South heading to Galveston. I usually take Beltway, and we usually leave our house at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., so we don't hit too much traffic going into Galveston. But, man, sometimes it is bad. It is just the worst. Like, if you're driving a normal day, it's so disgusting.
Yeah, and if you hit it, it's usually it just there's no
there's no other way. There's no roundabout. There's no go around. No, you're just stuck. Enjoy it. Check out the random strip clubs near the airport. Check out the Mexican restaurant, and all of a sudden there's a Planned Parenthood.
There's that one dental place that stole the Avengers logo.
Yes. And you're just gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy it.
Yep. All right, Raheel, recap your team for the folks. I'll recap mine after that, and then we'll let them go vote over on the community page.
All right, 610 North in the Galleria area. Yeah. That is my number one pick. 59 North heading into downtown after Kirby all the way until 45. You're just going to be stuck in traffic. Then my number 3 pick is West Park Tollway, the worst tollway in the entire city. And then finally, TC Jester, all reliable, will bust your tire up. That's my last pick.
I went with Richmond, and then I went 59 South from 610 to about Bissonnette. I went with Westheimer, and then I went with 45 South from about 610 to Galveston, that little stretch there. Well, that's a big stretch, but you get the gist of it.
Yeah.
The folks will get to vote on this, but Raheel, tell them where they can find all of your stuff, because I know you got 37 jobs and 400 different ways to find it. So tell the folks.
Okay. Number 1, subscribe to the CityCast Houston podcast. It is everything but sports. All right. So politics, news, culture, food recommendations, everything that's happening in the city that you need to know about, and you'll catch up in about 20 minutes every morning. They're short episodes. Subscribe to the podcast. We also have a newsletter called Hey Houston, which you can subscribe to. You can get your news, free events, things to do around the city. It is awesome. Brooke Lewis writes that. That's my colleague. Go to houston.citycast.fm to subscribe to both of those, or you can find it in your podcast feed. And then, excuse me as I clear my throat because I've been working so much.
Exactly.
You can watch me on UFC Fight Pass when Fury Fighting Championship has their big event. And you can find that schedule on my Instagram at Raheel Doing Things. And then I'll be at the Roughnecks game, the next 2 games in May. I won't be there for the May 25th one because I'm working my UFC job, so I won't be able to be there. But you can find me as a stadium host there, and then keep up with me on social media on X, _Raheel, or at Raheel Doing Things on Instagram.
Man, I love when you put up clips from the MMA stuff.
Thanks, man.
Not even the knockouts, but just some of the fun stuff that you do with some of your colleagues.
Yeah, we have so much fun.
Very,
I love the
fun
reaction
stuff.
cam because like it literally, like the first time they put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a reaction cam. You're mindful. After that, I don't care.
Right.
And like I will grab my colleagues. Like I will grab them in a big moment. Like I don't know why I do that, but I do it.
That might be one of the only sports where like the announcers are like physically losing it almost as much as the crowd is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fantastic stuff. So
Yeah, I
Raheel
appreciate
put
it.
it all in there. I'll put some links down in the description for the folks as well. And the people will vote. I haven't lost one yet, but those were food things, and I like to eat.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, you're good at the food stuff.
Yeah,
I'm good at the road stuff.
You're good. Yeah, you're good at telling us what part of Houston is not so good.
Yeah.
Man, thanks again for joining me on this. And I call it a fantasy draft. It's a nightmare if you have to drive on these roads all the time. But we had some fun with it, and hopefully the folks enjoyed it. And hopefully they check out CityCast, all the great stuff you have going on. And I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Cody. I appreciate it, man. Keep up the great work.